Hey everybody, welcome to Girls Game Shelf. Today we are playing Newton, but before we dive in, we have an Amazon merch store, so you could buy your very own Girls Game Shelf t-shirt with the corner shelf logo on it. I'll put the link below, so you can check that out. And now let's dive in with how to play Newton. In Newton, you are a young scientist that wants to become one of the greats. And in order to do that, you're going to be traveling to about 5 different spaces on the board. When you set up the game, you're going to be placing tiles all over the board. Tiles, 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 so many of them, which may seem overwhelming, but look, they're all different sizes and shapes. So it's pretty self-explanatory where they're supposed to go. And there's more of them than what you need, so every play is going to be just a little bit different than the last. Before we talk about what a turn is like, let's talk about these places that you can go to first. First, we have the travel track, where we have a master here that can travel to different universities and leave tokens along the way. Then we have the worker track, which is all the way up here. That's where you can move your little token around and get coins for moving and some other things. Then we have the technology track, where your student can choose one path on the tree of knowledge and gain potions and extra students and all sorts of things that we will go over. Then we have the lessons area, where it's basically deck building, but you have different levels that you can be building your deck at. Then, finally, we have the player board, and attached to that is this study track, where you can be using all of the information and coins and things that you get in the other areas in order to put books on your shelves. So now let's dive into how a turn goes. Each player is going to have their starting hand, and each of those cards are going to have a symbol on it. See that little scroll symbol? Well, these symbols correlate to a different area that we just talked about on the board. So for your first turn, you're going to play one of your cards on your player board. Let's play the compass. The compass symbol corresponds to the travel track. And here's the way these symbols work. You'll notice now that on my board there are 2 compass symbols. So that means that I can move up to 2 spaces on the travel track. Let's do that right now. I'm gonna move boop, boop, and then I'll put my little token down on that university. Ta-da! Let's talk a little bit more about this travel track. There are a few different kinds of tiles here, but the ones that are the most unique to the travel track are the universities and the ancient land tiles. These are the ones that you're going to drop your tokens off when you travel to them, and that's going to help you out later. Sometimes along your route there are tiles that will help you out, like these little gray circles. These are bonus tiles that you can pick up as you pass over them. That means the other player can't get them. But you don't only get bonuses for traveling. Sometimes there's a cost to be paid. Like here, this right here, you'd have to pay 2 coins to travel from here to here, kind of like a toll road. But back to our board. So moving however many spaces as symbols you have works for the travel track. It also works for the worker track. Here's the worker track. Let's say that's my next turn. I get to move my token 1 space because I only have 1 worker track symbol. And the worker track is pretty straightforward. For every space that I move, I get 1 coin. Next, let's go to the technology track. On this track, your student can only move in 1 direction and they can't go backwards. So they have to choose a path, and then once they reach the end of the path, that's it for them. There are ways to get more students though. I can move 1 space, so I'll move here, because this one means I can get another student on the board. Boop. There's not necessarily any tiles that are unique to the technology track, but there's just so many more options here for you. More options to get things like these development tiles. We've been calling these scrolls up until now. If you land on a tile like this, you get to choose one to put on your player board so that you get more actions for your next turn. There's also the bonus tiles that we talked about in the other track that you can pick up as you move along, chances to win more coins, another student to go along your track, and maybe the most alluring thing about the technology board are the objective tiles. The thing with objective tiles is that you have to have already met the requirement of the objective tile before you reap the benefits of it. So for example, here, if I came all the way up to this one, there's 3 orange books and 1 blue book. I would have had to have that on my player board in order to be able to take this objective tile and apply its effects. If I had 2 technology symbols, I could move my student 2 spaces. That's the way it works for all of the tracks that have movement. However, it's a little bit different when we're talking about the lessons area and the study area. So let's play one of our lessons here. Now I've played the lessons card on this turn. That means that I can go to this first row here and pick a card from that row. If I had 2 hats, I could pick from this row. If I had 3 hats, I could pick from this row. I don't, so I'm going to take this hat with a book. Finally, let's go to the study track. I'm playing this book, which means I can go to my study track. The study track works similarly to the hats. There's 1, 2, and 3 books. And depending on how many book symbols I've put down on my player board, that determines where I can fill my shelves with books. But in order to fill your shelves with books, you have to have completed that requirement that's on that particular shelf. Let's look at this first row where I can go. There's this blue book, 3 blue books, a couple of universities, a green book, and luckily I have played cards here that have books on them. I'm gonna put my bookshelves here on this 1 blue book. So the order that you play your cards truly matter in this game. Had I played this study track any sooner, then I wouldn't have had the books that I needed in order to fill those shelves. There are a couple of ways to get books on your shelves. The first is by meeting the requirement on that shelf. So that means you're either playing cards on your player board to meet those requirements, or you're traveling to the universities or the ancient lands and putting tokens on them so that you meet the requirement of that bookshelf. The other way to get books is by using potions. You can buy potions with money, or you can earn them as you move your student or scientist along. 1 potion will buy you a book of any color to put in your library, but 3 potions means that you don't have to meet that requirement at all. Every time you complete a row or a column in your study area, you get these income points. So since I did this column right here, I would get 2 victory points for every single round that I've had that there. Another way you can help boost yourself towards victory is by playing a master card, which has special powers and usually gives you victory points at the end of the game. You can play a master card by reaching this diploma symbol. They call this the master space right here. It's on the technology track here, on the work track, and also on the travel track. But you can also play a master card after placing 9 bookshelves on your study track. So now that we're at the end of the round, you can choose one of the cards that you've played and tuck it under your player board. So let's tuck this one. There we go. And that means on all the future rounds, you're going to be able to get that extra action that will help boost you, either moving more spaces or being able to go in more places. The game lasts for 6 rounds, and at the end of the last round, players tally up all the different points that they've made from all the different areas on the boards, and whoever has the most victory points wins the game. And that is how you play. Actually, it was really not hard to learn, and I credit Jack for being a really good teacher.
I think a really great way to teach the game is by going through each track. I like to use the starter deck and then talk about, when you play this card, and then I show that track and I talk all about how that track works.
She started by setting up the game, and I was like, oh my God, there's so many pieces. There's just so many pieces.
At first glance, setup looks like it might be difficult. We have a lot of different cardboard pieces. We have just a lot of different components. All of the shapes, they match exactly where you want them to go. Most of them have more than you need. So every single game is not only going to be in a different order, but it's going to be a different selection.
Setting it up, just like learning the rules, was much less intimidating than I thought. Caveat, I had someone to hold my hand throughout the whole thing, so that certainly helped.
It's about Newton. I don't even know what the theme of the game is. I always have to look at the first pages of the rules. But to be really honest, the theme, it's kind of pasted on. This is a dry Euro with low player interaction. So while the theme is about scholars, it's almost unnecessary. It could be anything.
Actually, it was really helpful for me because I need a theme to get me behind something. And, the different tracks, immediately when I saw a tutorial for this game, I was like, I want to travel. I'm going to fill up my library shelves because that's what I want to do. And had it been something else, I don't know if I would have cared as much. So I have to give a kudos for the theme. Of course, I didn't feel like I was Newton or like I was a scientific explorer, but I did feel like I was in that world, and I liked that.
The apple on the box, it's always striking when I take photos of it. But the board itself, maybe individually, I don't maybe think it's as exciting as it could be.
And it all kind of looks like this old antique map. And I love antique maps, so I liked that. However, I do feel like they could have done just a little bit more with the like the tree of knowledge, for example. Oh my gosh. Like the students are moving along this track and it's a tree. It does not look like a tree. You know, it'd be cool if they did an antique map look with a little bit of like, you know, modern color mixed in. But honestly, while I was playing, I didn't mind, because the antique map, again, was a way that I got into the theme. I was like, ooh, yeah, we're explorers looking at this old crinkled map and, you know, moving along these old dusty books. And, like, it works.
For the most part, I think the iconography is well done, except some of the small tiles, they're not bold enough. So unless you know to look for those little details, you might not catch it on your first play.
There are 6 rounds in this game. It does go by very quickly, and that was helpful for me, for Jack to remind me, you only have like 30 moves that you can do. It's really helpful to remember that.
I love that it rewards efficiency, and finding that sweet spot in efficiency, that's really the core of this game. With this game, you can't focus on everything. You won't succeed. You really have to specialize in a couple areas. And the work track is usually the area I don't focus on.
I definitely think that the worker track is like the weakest one. I mean, you need it sometimes, but it's not... See, theme does matter, because it didn't matter to me. I was like, I can get coins in several different ways. Like, if there was something else about that track that made it interesting or gratifying, I would have paid more attention to it. But I absolutely, like, I can't see myself caring about that track in the future either. So to me, it's like the weak link of the game.
The one thing I would say, maybe a critique of the game, that I strongly feel that one of the player boards is overpowered. The player board that starts with a book, I feel like I have definitely an advantage playing with that. Focusing on that bookshelf and creating that engine early in the game where you're creating, just 3, 6, 10, 11, 12 points every round. Like there's just nothing else on the board that can really compete with that. So I think starting with that player board where you have that book action as your freebie action, you're really going to have a benefit. I try different strategies to see if I'm wrong and there is another dominant strategy. Each time it just reinforces that when you go strong on the books early in the game, you're gonna win.
If you decide not to focus on your shelves, I feel like you're just missing like kind of like the main way of playing the game. You know, everything else is just, it's about getting the knowledge into your shelves. It's constantly like this juggling act of like, oh, I have these book actions, but I haven't laid down enough cards in order to be able to like clear these 2 orange books off my shelf. I have to travel to like get that knowledge, or I have to gain my potions, and like what ways can I gain those items so that I can put these books on my shelves. And if you're not playing that way, you're gonna have a harder time.
Everybody has a different level that they think this game is. I think this game is medium to light. It's definitely on the lighter side of medium in my perspective, although I've had several people tell me I was wrong with that. I know people have compared it to games like Voyages of Marco Polo, which I should probably admit is one of my favorite games, and I do not think this is anywhere near the weight of that game. I think this is much lighter. Really, the heaviness comes in being efficient with those quick 30 actions. But I do want to say that Cranio, which is the company that put this out, does have this listed as a light game on their site, regardless of what BGG states.
I wouldn't call it a light game. I would disagree, because I feel like I play with a lot of folks that don't even consider themselves gamers. And this would take a minute for us to like get them to be comfortable with it. Not because it's extremely difficult, but because it's intimidating. It's an intimidating game because there's a lot going on. That being said, I felt like it was really easy to catch on. So I understand why someone who plays a lot of Euros would think that this is a light game. It's not. Respectfully disagree. I would need to play it like a lot more to really appreciate the gameplay. So this is my first play experience, and I still had a lot of fun, even though I didn't quite know what I was doing. I still had fun because I was able to like just focus on a couple of things that I liked, and I felt comfortable leaving like the worker track to the wayside. And I felt comfortable only dabbling in my hats and getting my cards. You know, it's kind of like just nothing can be too precious on your first playthrough, I'd say. You know, choose the tracks that seem most interesting to you and go for it.
It definitely has this puzzly feel. So it gets exciting because each time that I play, I think, how could I do it better? How could I strategize better?
It's a good game. I like it. This game goes on the shelf for me. I dig it.
Definitely goes on the shelf.
Will it stay there?
You have to ask me in a year.
Thank you so much for watching. That's our show for today. It was a great game. It goes on the shelf. Make sure you follow Jack on Instagram and Twitter. I'll put the links to her accounts below. I get a lot out of following her accounts. So yeah, definitely recommend. And we'll see you next time on Girls Game Shelf. Bye.